Hey everybody, welcome to Watches with Dennis, and today I'm going to go over the 5 worst watches of 2023. Yes, we're still in December. We might have an unpleasant surprise before the end of the year. However, by and large, I think most of the companies are done releasing, and I think this is a reasonable cutoff point. About a week ago, I did my top 5 watches of 2023. So go ahead and check that video out if you're looking for something more optimistic. These aren't like the 5 ugliest watches, at least not all of them. Some of these are more symbolic about things that I don't care for that happen in the watch industry. So anyway, as we go through that, I'll explain all of them. But starting with my number 5, which is Gerard Perago's or GP's Laureato Aston Martin edition. This is the green ceramic watch. The 42mm version is the one that you see in the image box. This watch, if you like the Laureato, you probably like all of the basic DNA of this particular watch. Yes, I believe it's GP's first green ceramic watch. Otherwise, it's not really trailblazing in any way. I remember I had a first thoughts video on this watch, and a lot of people didn't really care for my thoughts on the actual piece, which mostly were judging it in regards to aspects of the Laureato that I don't care for. However, that is not why it's on this list. It's on this list because it is emblematic of what I think of as lazy collaboration. When I look at this watch, you've got some Aston Martin branding on the sapphire case back. You've got the green colorway. You've got some of the patterning or the texturing of the dial. This still just looks like a Laureato, a green Laureato. This is not a good collaboration. In my view, a good watch collaboration mandates that both the watchmaker and whoever they're collaborating with have some sort of input together to develop something new and unique. I don't think it's a good collaboration when a company like GP, and GP was not alone in 2023 in doing this, just basically goes to a company and says, hey, can we use your emblem and colors? And they're like, yo, cool. But that's what this watch is. It's a low effort collaboration. You might like how it looks. That's totally fine. But as a collaboration itself, there's nothing special here. GP could have done, and I think in fact did do everything about this watch in-house. That Aston Martin's team was in no way involved other than signing off on the rights and getting paid to do so. My number 4 watch of the 5 worst watches of 2023 is the Tudor Pelagos FXD. I have the chronograph version on display here, but it's really being about this carbon fiber version of the FXD. Now, I probably could have gone ahead and cited this one as another low-effort collaboration because when I look at this watch, I see a lot of Red Bull Racing colors, but I don't really see anything that suggests anyone other than Tudor actually designed the watch itself. But we already had the Laureato for this, so we don't need to reiterate that. My main issue is, in my head, and feel free to disagree in the comments below, no one was asking for a luxury Tudor Pelagos in carbon fiber, and that's what we got here. A lot of people didn't really care for the colorway. I actually think the colorway looks fine. I think the watch itself looks fine, including the carbon fiber casing, but it saves a few $100s off of the other FXD models last I looked at the pricing, but it's still over $5,000 US for what is otherwise, I think, a fairly unimpressive watch versus what the Pelagos is known for. Actually, one of the big reasons is release-wise, sort of the marketing decision on this watch in terms of why it's on this list. Tudor should have held off for a significant time frame before they revealed this watch because the Titan submersible that was diving down to view the Titanic imploded, and that was a carbon fiber submarine. And when we saw in the media all these discussions about carbon fiber and how it doesn't handle stress and how it's not really ideal for diving purposes, and then what happens? Tudor goes ahead and drops a dive watch made out of carbon fiber right in the wake of all of this attention. It wasn't Tudor's fault, but they definitely should have thought about it before going in and saying, you know what? There's been a lot of talk about how carbon fiber is not suitable for diving. Maybe we shouldn't drop a big dive watch here made out of carbon fiber and act like it's really innovative. My number 3 watch on my list of 5 worst watches of 2023 is IWC's Ur, the Automatic 40. I think this watch looks really interesting, and a lot of people agreed when it dropped at Watches and Wonders. This watch is on here for one reason, and all of you who are familiar with the watch know exactly why it is. The price. This watch, without getting into, say, the titanium model, because of course we have to upcharge for titanium, don't we, IWC, is $11,700 US. This is a significant delta over where the IWC Urs traded for in the past, especially if you look at the used market to get older ones, which again isn't surprising, but I am not alone in being the only person who looked at this and said, you should have been able to get 2 of them at this price, not just 1. It was ridiculously overpriced. The arguments that IWC tried to make when they bothered to try and make them about the new movement and the tech and the R&D, no one bought it. No one believes it. No one thinks that this watch warrants a nearly $12,000 price point for its most baseline model. And so, for that reason alone, this watch is on the list. My penultimate watch choice for the 5 worst watches of 2023 is an Orient. An Orient I have not talked about on this channel except maybe once in a live stream, and that is the Mako 40 when they released it in the 5 colorways this year in a smaller case size from the older Mako. Now, there's plenty you could go ahead and criticize, and there's plenty you could go ahead and like. I actually thought, by and large, these were fairly attractive watches. I'm sure somewhat polarizing because they do have a spot for a lume pip on the bezel that has no lume in it. But that's not the problem with the watch. Orient does plenty of dive spec watches that lack that. I own one. The Orient Cano line is criticized because it doesn't have lume on the bezel. And it's a fair criticism, but not worthy of being a 5 worst watches of any particular year. The problem here actually has to do with the second track or the minute track that goes around at sort of the edge of the dial. And on a close-up, you can see it, and it's that 26 minute or second marker that's right by that loomed 5 o'clock hour marker. You can see that it abuts that hour marker, almost touching it, and there's a significant spacing between the 26 and the 27 minute or second, depending how you want to think about it. A glaring mistake. How did Orient let this slip through QC? This isn't just a one-off that happened. This was in all of the Orient promotional photos. So this dial set, and it was in every colorway, slipped through all the QC, got photographed, got promoted, got sent out, and it's fixed now. I don't know if the ones they're selling are fixed, but on Orient's website, when I was getting ready to put together this video, I did check, and they now have appropriately spaced markers on their dials. But what a huge miss. I know that Orient is seen by and large as a budget company because they are, and they make really nice, robust watches. And to come out with something that a lot of people were really excited about, a more wearable Mako, and blunder something that should have been on autopilot, you can tell that the QC teams were totally on autopilot, that this got all the way to production and had this error. A huge miss, absolutely huge. But not a big enough miss to actually take the number 1 spot on my list. Speaking of my number 1, anyone who's watched a lot of my live streams in particular knows this had to be the number 1 watch for me. It was super easy. Going into this list, I started with this watch and worked my way backwards to develop out the full list of the 5. But the worst watch release of 2023 is, and I'm going to look to the side so I can read exactly what this name is, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak 1017 Alex 9SM Matthew Williams designer watches. All of them. They're all the worst one. I'll go ahead and show you here a picture of the chronograph version, or one of the chronograph versions. Everything about this watch is offensive from a design standpoint. I mean, it's not going out and crushing a box of kittens or anything. These are just watches after all. This list is just for fun after all. But it so reeks of AP desperately trying to find a way to appeal to a younger audience. But of course, they have to do it on the back of the Royal Oak. They can't innovate anything outside of the Royal Oak. Now, unlike the criticism I had of the Aston Martin Laureato and what we could have possibly criticized as well on the Red Bull Racing collaboration for Tudor, this is a real collaboration. You can tell that an outside designer's influence is in the dial of this watch. The problem is that you end up with an unreadable watch. I know there are plenty of companies that do watches without markers. Moser loves to do this, and I'm not a fan of those watches. So this was already going to be a red mark on the list for me. However, and the reason why I'm using the chronograph in particular as an example is it super defeats the purpose of a timepiece when it's got a function like a chronograph that ostensibly works, but you can't read anything with it. It's all style. It's no substance. And I don't know how many they expect to sell because these are extremely expensive watches, but you have to really be into this fashion watch look to go ahead and say, I want something where not only can I not easily tell the time, if I get the one with the complication, I can't even tell what the complication is telling me. You look at these watches, you have no idea what the subdials even represent, other than you think that the chronograph controls them. It's just really bad. But on top of the bad design language in the watch was all the promotional material. My favorite that I like to cite all the time is the dead girl in the lawn chair. This was part of the promotional package that they put out to sell these watches to the public is, hey, look, how are we supposed to wear this unreadable watch? I guess if you're dead, you don't need to read it. So here, we'll have someone dead in a lawn chair, cheap plastic lawn chair, super expensive watch. Oh, look at how edgy. And I don't know if it's a hipster thing or what, but it's not a good look. But I love that one because it's a funny photo. But what was even worse is the shot of this uber expensive watch on a key ring with a bunch of keys there, scratching it up, hanging there. Again, it's this weird, oh yeah, no, this is a watch for people that just don't care. I could see someone maybe being that careless with the aforementioned Orient Mako watch with its misprinted dial. Maybe you're like, I don't care if my keys are bumping up against it all the time. But these Royal Oaks are super expensive, especially these special ones. And I'm not sure even rich people treat their watches this badly. It sure doesn't seem very respectful to the watch. I mean, if you're someone that's like, yeah, I'd hang my watch on a key ring, comment below. I'd love to hear about your logic. But anyway, absolutely terrible watch, terrible look, terrible promotion. Audemars Piguet has no idea what they're doing anymore, and this watch just encapsulated it. There are plenty of AP Royal Oak watches that could have been worthy of being on this list of 5 worst watches, but I only wanted one from each individual brand to appear on the list. And when it comes to the Audemars Piguet line in 2023, this Alex 1017 was easily the worst one, by far. But anyway, folks, those are my 5 worst watches of 2023. Did you agree with any of them? Are there any other watches that you think should have been on this list that I neglected? Are there some here that you really actually think are good watches and I shouldn't have mentioned them? Go ahead and comment below. I'd love to read them. Other than that, if you found the video at least somewhat entertaining, please do click the like button. It is helpful. If you want to be notified when I have new videos, there's a subscribe button floating around there somewhere and you can click on that. In the video description, there is a link to the Discord channel if you want to chat further about watches. And if you want to support the channel beyond even subscribing, there is a link to my 99 cent club. Other than that, I hope you all have a really good day. Take care.